I see now we're at 29 participants, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. I just wanted to say good morning and welcome everyone to the Refinitiv Academy. Our topic today is the Advanced Transformation System. I'm your host, Susan Murphy. Today, we're joined by Vesna Gorzenik, our product manager, Brad Bueller, development manager. For some housekeeping, just want to make sure you know that all your participant lines are currently muted. If you'd like to ask a question, please click the chat icon and then drop down, select Susan Murphy, type your message, and then hit enter. We're going to respond to all questions at the end of the session. So what are we going to cover today? First, an overview of the product and its role in the real-time distribution system. We're going to discuss the roadmap, the new enhancements, and where we're headed. And finally, we're going to highlight the benefits and some sample use cases. Now I'd like to start with a sample poll question, which is, have you had any previous experience with advanced transformation systems? You can see there's 3 options. If you just select your answer, we have 30 seconds. Okay, so for the poll results, it seems like we have about 50% of the audience are familiar with and have had experience with the ATS. So I think that's helpful, especially in regard to new features that will be especially relevant to you in our audience. If you need to close the poll section, hit the top right-hand corner to close that polling. Now actually over to Vesna.
Thank you, Susan. I will begin with a quick overview of ATS for those who are not too familiar with it. So ATS is a value-add component of RTDS, previously known as TREP. It subscribes, transforms, and publishes real-time market data and delivers modified data to downstream applications. ATS also allows users to programmatically augment real-time data by applying custom logic and rules. In other words, ATS can define custom calculations and create synthetic records and then publish that data onto the platform for distribution and consumption by other users. Next slide, please. So this diagram shows how ATS is a source server that aggregates real-time data together from multiple sources, including internal contributed data. It then transforms, centrally calculates, and publishes or contributes the resulting data onto the platform for further distribution and consumption by other applications and users. ATS functions include what is shown in the diagram, which includes calculate, aggregate, normalize, parse, publish, and manage. Next slide, please. So here's a list of the main functionality of ATS. It includes real-time calculations, including real-time and delayed data, multiple source blending, which allows ATS to subscribe real-time records from multiple sources, blends and publishes them through a single ATS service. Next is fault tolerance with ATS resiliency system. Means ATS can run both as a standalone server and as a pair of resilient servers. So you can run multiple ATS processes to increase availability and stabilize the fault tolerance. Central data management and validation rules allows you to use ATS to contribute or update data and share it across the organization from a single location and validate the data by filtering the values that are out of range. ATS also offers a web-based configuration tool called ATS User Interface, the UI, for users to create, modify, and specify access rights over ATS records and models. And lastly, contribution permissioning gives you the ability to control user access down to individual record via DAX. I will now hand it over to Brad to go over the ATS roadmap with recent and upcoming deliverables. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Susan and Vesna, for taking us through that introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Brad Bueller. I am the development manager over a few of our Refinitiv real-time value-add products, one of which is ATS. So I'll take you through today some of the roadmap items that maybe have recently happened and some that we plan on deliver over the next year. I just want to start off by mentioning, as I'm sure many of you are aware of some of the rebranding initiatives in the past. I just wanted to let you know that ATS has been rebranded as of version 1.6.0, which was released in July of 2020. So it's been out there for a while. So no issues or previous versions since the Flash to Angular switch. Just wanted to let everyone know that. So I'll start off with the first item on our roadmap, which we delivered at the end of last year, which was the advanced logging. So this enhancement was delivered in the 1.6.1 release. With this feature, there's a separate parameter that would need to be enabled that expands upon the existing audit logging. This is used for more detailed auditing of certain user events, mainly performed through the ATS UI. So there's two actual operations that are being logged, and those are profile monitor and privileges monitor. So the profile monitor, if a user or admin is created or deleted, or if they made any updates to their account, they'll log in that. When a user logs in and out, if a user gets locked or unlocked, or if a group gets created or deleted. So going to the privileges monitor, you can log auditing activities. Let's say if there's a record, a model, a yield curve, or a container has been created, updated, deleted, it will log that. Also, if there is a record or model that has been renamed or changed ownership, along with a few other activities in the privileges monitor. We hope that this would provide greater support. Let's say if a record or model you're subscribing to or contributing to is now giving different information or something has changed, now you can go back and see, okay, who has changed it, or maybe you need to lock down the permissions of that record or container so no one else can go in and change anything. So going on to the next item, which is ATS containerization. So in effort to help ATS qualify on some of the different platforms, we provided two options for ATS containerization. The first option was the ATS container image that's kind of off the shelf. It's actually in the same repository on Docker Hub as the RTDS containers, such as the ADS, ADS POP, ADH, RTC. So you'll be able to find that under the same repository. You'll just have to go down in the directory and find the ATS version tags that you would like to pull. If you would also like to build your own ATS Docker container image from one of maybe the previous versions, the documentation and build scripts are available in packages as of ATS 1.6.4 and will be able to be found out on My Refinitiv soon. As always, for updated support on the containers, you can always reference the category support matrix found under the Refinitiv Real-Time Distribution System Product Support Framework Guide. It's always good practice to go out and check the new versions and then possibly any updated support that could come and change over time. Going on to the next item on the list, which is password policy enhancement, and also I'm going to talk about split screen functionality. So in ATS 1.6.4, we provided a function for split screen functionality. This provides a split view support whenever you're going to edit blank records, records from model, record from yield curve, real-time records, models. This helps tremendously not having to go back and forth between pages. You can see your previous setup or configurations and also what you're going to edit and change them to. It's an easy save button. Eventually, we will be adding a feature that you can toggle if you want to be able to use the split screen or not. Moving to password policy. So as the latest version out, the ATS 1.6.5, We put it in the enhancement of the option of more secure password settings for users and administrators. So along with giving the user ability to reset and unlock their passwords without needing administrator support. So with that, administrators, through the ATS UI, can determine password length of characters, password age length, if you want to use special characters. There's also a different settings for both users and administrators, so they can be different. So as long as the SMTP mail server is also set up in the application properties file, the user also has a valid email in their profile. Now users have the ability to generate an OTP, a one-time password, if they forgot their password or need to reset it without having to rely on an administrator to do this. So even though they can do this, the administrator can and still reset and unlock. And with this only applies, some of these password policy changes only apply to new users, or if a user has to update their password or reset their password. We'll move on to the next item, which is ATS and AWS. So we are about to release qualification documents. I know a lot of people have growing interest in the different cloud platforms. We are about to release those qualification documents, hopefully within the next week. On setting up ATS, mainly we're using containers in AWS, just mainly because of the licensing, trying to combat that. With that, we found that ADS POP, and eventually we'll be testing with RTC, will need to be used because of some of the multi-class support within cloud infrastructures. And right now, the ATS resiliency, the global synchronization, we are using the post-forwarding configuration as force replication. We're still needing to follow up and possibly discuss with some of the RTDS and API teams. So more on that to come in the future. This documentation will be available on Refinitiv, and we will also be providing an ATS AWS AMI in the near future also. Moving on to the next item on the list is ATS RCC enhancement. So RCC is the Refinitiv contributions channel. Some customers may have the availability option that they can do this. So with the interest in contributing ATS up to the Refinitiv contributions channel, we're working on setting up an extra parameter that will actually send these contributions using the RTDS ADH TSA or ADS POP TSA tunnel up to the Refinitiv contributions channel. Moving on to the next item is the Red Hat 8 qualification. So following the RTDS footsteps, we are looking to qualify ATS on Red Hat 8 with Red Hat 6 going out of maintenance support and Red Hat 8 providing more security and performance improvements. We're going to be qualifying ATS on that Red Hat 8. Moving on to the next item is ATS in Azure and GCP. So with many clients choosing the various top 3 CSP cloud service providers, we're going to look at expanding the support of ATS into each of these providers. We'll be working on qualifying and updating that category support document I mentioned earlier to reflect this when it is completed. The next item is the ATS small and or large enhancements. So depending on utilization and availability as we work through some of these enhancements that I've previously mentioned, there might be some options and availability to add in some small, medium, large enhancements. We have an enhancement list that we work off of, so we'll prioritize that as that comes in and make those available, especially in our What's New guide provided in the ATS package. Next on this list is the ATS virtualization. So right now, ATS only supports 1 guest per host. This was done quite a while ago, and of course, trying to revisit that. So we're going to be looking at what the recommended host, VM specs, usage, performance numbers. Plan on doing that sometime in 2022 and trying to put those out onto qualification documents out onto Refinitiv. That is it for the roadmaps. Susan, if you can please move to the next slide. So I will start going through some of the top ATS use cases. The first one is probably one of the main highlights of ATS, which is data transformation. ATS is used primarily for data transformation in which users can slice and dice data to manipulate, validate, and process, publish their needs. ATS currently can accept values sent by the user from their spreadsheets or other applications and publish them back onto the network, making them available to any subscriber with the correct permissions. As you can see on the slide here are some of the examples of those field expressions. So users can create records that can have a variety of field expressions. In those field expressions could be real-time values, constant values, internal contributions, arrays, and could be defined and displayed in the field. It uses some of the ATS functions that retrieve data, combine it, and add value through ATS. There could be expressions made up of single extraction of a function, or there could be more complex expressions that are made up of several extraction and mathematical functions. Susan, if you can please move to the next slide, please. Okay, so on this side, it's kind of showing you an example of what the ATS deco file for this record and the expressions that are currently assigned to it. You can see there's a myrec is the record that was created. There's two expressions underneath, one of which is used in one of the calculations of square root to find this record's ask and bid price square root. ATS has over 15 date and time functions, 25 mathematical functions, over 30 miscellaneous functions, along with many more parsing and statistical functions. So this is just one example, but there are many different options that can be used. If you have the correct licensing, you can also enable and use add-fin libraries, which have established calculations readily available. If you also have an experienced C or C++ developer, you can add the C add-in function to customize some of these expressions a little bit more. Those instructions can be found in the ATS TPI document, which is the third-party integration guide. Another quick type of data output of ATS I will quickly touch on is yield curves. So the ATS yield curve calculation engine enables users to build yield curves for sharing across the organization. The yield curve is centralized inside of ATS. This minimizes the risk of pricing discrepancies across departments. ATS not only creates the curves from real-time data, but it also allows users to adjust or customize data. Susan, if you wouldn't mind moving to the next slide, please, and I'll hand it over to Vesna.
Thanks, Brad, for starting us off. So the next use case I will go over is internal contributions. The figure shows how ATS manages contributions. ATS allows you to automatically update fields in records by sending requests from RTDS or sync applications. This update is called an internal contribution. Since ATS 1.4, you can use both OMM post and SSL insert messages. The following ATS commands can be sent with OMM post messages. This includes contribute values to existing contribution fields, create or delete contribution records and records from model, add and delete contribution fields, and lastly, delete contribution fields and records. The contribution data can be sent through the RTDS network to ATS as OMM post messages without the need for any conversion. If the contribution values are in SSL insert format, they are converted to OMM post messages at the RTDS level before being sent to ATS. Next slide, please. So the following use case is calculations. As Brad mentioned, ATS is integrated with the Adfin++ library, the official Refinitiv financial analytics library. This helps users to centralize their calculation within the ATS in the same way as the other built-in functions, and you can call them via the ATS user interface. These functions are also available in Icon Excel and are embedded within the Icon calculators. By using ATS, users can replicate these calculations server-side, allowing any application to subscribe the resulting real-time outputs. Sample admin calculations include the following categories as shown. This includes options, swaps, forex and MM, common, term structure, and bonds. For more information on functions, you may refer to the ATS third-party integration guide on the MyRefinitiv website. Next slide, please. Now I will go through the next use case, which is handling multiple sources. Example 1 shows the blending of IDN real-time data with internal contributions and reference data stored in CSV file. So let's say a client's use case is the need to get data from several sources and multiple real-time platforms. Ideally, all the data should be unified and integrated into one system to promote better decision-making. As a source blending application, ATS combines all sources into one single source. Traders can subscribe to all data sources by subscribing only to the ATS service. And in addition, it unifies data from multiple different sources into one single view. This is also known as normalization, which I will discuss in the next use case. Next slide, please. Other functions for handling multiple sources include the following examples. In example 2, opens both sources 1 and 2, but only sends data for source 1. When source 1 is no longer available or valid, it sends data for source 2. In example 3 is the if down function with 3 sources. This opens one source, source 1, circulates the data on the network, and when it cannot find source 1, closes this source and opens a second source, source 2. The data is then circulated on the network, and when it cannot find source 2, closes this source and opens a third source, source 3. The sequence of source and calculation is 1, 2, 3, respectively. In example 4, the merge function opens all specified sources at the same time and returns results from all sources. Other validation functions include is okay, is error, is stale, which returns 1 if the status of the record is either okay, closed, or stale. Otherwise, is 0 for all. Again, more information on the functions can be found in the ATS third-party integration guide on Refinitiv as well. Next slide, please. So now I will discuss normalization. As I mentioned in the previous use case, normalization allows you to request and display market data in a standard format, regardless of the data's original format and source. For example, you can request records from different market data sources using a single standard naming system and display the data using a standard display template. The following list of data that can be normalized includes record names, field names, some field format features, for example, the number of places after the decimal point in prices, and the record display template in use. Create normalized records dynamically between the ATS and the following, which include client application, control provider, for example, a Refinitiv real-time database publishing server, DPS, and real-time data feeds, which a real-time data feed works as a control provider and a data provider. An example is DPS acting as a control provider to the ATS. ATS will send the argument to DPS. DPS will take the arguments and check against the DPS database or flat file and return the given values for normalization. DPS supports Oracle and flat files such as CSV or XML. These can be static or on the fly. Next slide, please. And I will hand it over back to Brad to cover the remaining use cases.
Thank you, Vesna. So we'll start talking about page parsing a little bit. So you can see on the page, the example of page parsing. So the ATS is selecting a string from the page using the page or cross extracting functions. So page is the standard ATS function that extracts the data, static data from a real-time page or page record. Using the cross function uses standard ATS function that extracts the dynamic data from a real-time page or page record. As you can go through, the ATS filters a string to a set of variables using a line filter, and then converts those variables into an array of fields using values using an action associated to the parsing method. Then ATS feeds the records fields using these two functions, which these functions that feed the records field using an action from the results array from before. Susan, if you could please go to the next slide, please. So not only is it single page parsing, but we have multi-page parsing also. So with multi-page parsing, this screenshot on the slide is showing the expression pane of the ATS UI and how to specify the ranges and pages for multi-page parsing. The advantage of using multi-page parsing is that it widens the area. The parsing engine is not only limited to work within only one page, but parsing multiple pages at once. It also parses and shows the records that is moved from one page over to another page automatically. Susan, if you could please move to the next slide, please. So now we'll talk about automated page parsing. So going through this, it shows as the ATS starts up, the ATS subscribes page from source service. It runs the automated parsing process. The ATS then parses the received image for reference words. ATS then sends each item to the generic naming CADM function to create the generic record name. The CADM function can be implemented to connect both flat file and database. Number 4 there, after the ATS gets that generic naming returning from the CADM, ATS will then create the temporary parsing records using names retrieved and also create the chain for source service and item as a list of records. Use the generic naming CADM function to differentiate the same record names from different brokers. The ATS automated parsing engine uses the following features to assist in creating and managing parsing records. So it's able to create large numbers of temporary records at one time. You can create a large amount of temporary records at one time with few configuration steps. Naming the records with more flexibility, ATS can retrieve the pre-specified logics via the CADM functions to name records, and consequently, the record names are simpler and more meaningful for end users. It can dynamically update, add, and remove records. The ATS can monitor all movement of the reference areas on pages and provides the most updated data. And also permission entities, such as ATS uses DAX lock to verify the permission of records created by the automated parsing engine. ATS can also create chain records automatically. ATS can formulate chain records as specified and automatically linked to the automated parsing records. Susan, that should wrap up the ending to our use cases. I will hand it back over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Brad and Vesna. I think what we can do now is move on to questions and answers. So as I said, submit any question you may have to Susan Murphy in the chat function. If there's any questions we can't answer today, we'll send a thorough response to the audience after the call. So if you have them, go ahead and send them on. Let's see what I have. Okay, so the first question is, we need to do application security testing before deploying any application or any new version in our environment. How do we know which third-party components and versions can be used that we have to install separately?
Sure, I'll take that one. Thanks, Susan, and the person who had sent in that question. So our third party, such as, let's say, the JDK and also the Tomcat versioning, we have a compatibility matrix that is actually compiled in the package of our ATS package underneath the document section. Not only does it show that we have Oracle JDK supported as of right now, which is a paid subscription, but it also shows that we are supporting Amazon Corretto now, which is an open JDK free version of subscription for the JDK services. It also shows which web browsers and versions are supported. It shows Tomcat, and as we go through the different security patches of Tomcat, it shows which Tomcat versions are supported to each ATS version. This also can show we have the operating systems in there. So we have the Red Hat 6, Red Hat 7, along with some of the other operating systems that we are supporting right now. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the next question, it is in regards to, are there any new resiliency enhancements?
Right now, there are no new resiliency enhancements. Right now, we're just mainly trying to focus on the global synchronization with the GSLR, so the global sync leader relocation, and then trying to also with the various cloud service providers, making sure that all those work currently within those service providers. So right now, there is no new resiliency.
Okay, so the next question we have here is there any plan to offer LDAP integration as an alternative to internal authentication and authorization of users?
That is actually a great question. We have thought about that. We have not come to any more terms on if we will be doing that anytime soon, but it would have to be prioritized as part of one of those future enhancements. So it would have to go through the enhancement gateway, which can be set up with your customer success manager, or if you want to talk with Susan, we can get you a link to provide that and have that prioritized for a future request.
Okay, looks like the next question is, do you see the use of WPG going away with post forwarding?
Also a great question. As of right now, not yet. There's always a chance for enhancements of trying to figure out how we can, along with that resiliency, trying to not use the WPG and see if we can use something else within the RTDS or one of the RTSDK APIs to try to use those with post forwarding. But right now, we don't plan to see that going away.
Okay, thank you. And the last one looks like it's about an enhancement. Raised a need for is a null function that would be able to check if source bid is null or not. Will we consider to add it? I think that's probably a question that we can take back and evaluate and respond to the entire audience, Brad. Anything that you want to add on that right now?
No, I think you're correct in that. I think that's something that we'll have to probably prioritize as an enhancement for right now, and I can take a look into that question a little bit more.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think that's all the questions I see for now. What I'm showing here are some additional resources. Brad and Vesna both mentioned during the presentation the link to my Refinitiv where the ATS product details are. I've shared those here. And I also am putting a link in the chat for everyone to complete a survey. For the survey, we're interested in knowing how we did. Refinitiv is always interested in trying to improve our client engagement and making sure these sessions are as helpful as possible. So if you could complete the questionnaire, that'd be great. So you should see that in the chat. If you just click the link in the chat, you should be able to submit the questionnaire. And then, thank you. I'll send a summary of the presentation to all the participants as well as the questions. So you should have all the details for today's session. I appreciate you guys attending. If anyone has any follow-up questions, they can reach out to me directly. Thank you very much and make it a great day.